Michael Kaskey-Blomain, the real Mike KB on Twitter. The Utah Summer League is in the books. They're going to go out to Vegas and start a little tournament out there they got going on. I like the little tournament style there. Everybody gets about 5 games. We'll recap everything that has kind of happened in the Sixers world and some new news here on the Bash 97.3 ESPN with Michael Kaskey-Blomain from 97.3ESPN.com. What's going on, KB?
Mike, how you doing, man?
Everything's good, and last night getting a chance to see Simmons again. I'll tell you, you watch him, the numbers don't jump off the page, but what impresses you the most about a guy who doesn't score all that much that gets you excited? Because in the world we live in, the superstar scores a lot, not this guy.
No, I mean, not yet, but I think you can't help but be impressed with mostly his poise and maturity and IQ on the court. It's what really has jumped out to me after a couple games. I mean, you could tell from the first quarter of that first Summer League game that he's extremely confident in his own abilities and he's confident in his knowledge of the game. And you can see, I mean, he was seeing plays and passes as they were developing, at a level that a veteran would as, a 19-year-old kid. So, I mean, obviously he wasn't putting up huge numbers offensively yet at this point, but I came away just really impressed with his overall, composure and poise at this early age.
You leave there, now only 2 games. I know it's so advanced to say things, but do you leave there saying that, you know what, I think that this kid can handle playing the 1?
Yeah, I think definitely you can see that. I mean, his vision, it was on display right from the beginning all the way through last night. I mean, he had countless passes, some that weren't even finished, that didn't end up counting as assists, that were, just excellent examples of his vision. And you already saw, I think as far as him being a point guard, ball handling is something that he would, have to improve upon. But you already saw that he's very comfortable with his own handle, bringing the ball up the court in transition or just bringing it up in the half-court set. And he showed off, some nice control and handling at a couple times throughout last night's game. So I think, the tools are really already in place for him to be a point guard. It's definitely something that the team would have to commit to and that he would have to work on. But I could see it happening, absolutely.
Christian Wood got a shot to make this team. I know he's been on the team, D-League, back and forth. Is he one of these guys that has a shot, blossom late? Is there a role for him, or is he just a guy who's dominating Summer League like some guys do?
I think there's a role for him in the NBA this season, absolutely. I'm just not sure if it will be the Sixers, just solely based off of, the crowded front court already. When you're factoring in, an Embiid coming back, Nerlens and Jalil both still on the roster, Simmons, Jeremy Grant, Covington, Rashawn Holmes, who assumes to be back, and then Saric if he comes over. It just doesn't seem to be like there would be enough time or minutes for Wood to get a fair shake, even though he has been playing, pretty impressively in Summer League. So I would not be surprised at all to see him get picked up somewhere. I just don't think there's enough space with the Sixers right now.
I saw you tweet earlier at The Real Mike KB, unpopular opinion. You wish the Sixers drafted a couple other guys over Dario Saric. I don't remember who they were, but hearing the Saric volleyball match that continues to go on, is that something you still believe?
Yeah, it is. That probably came out as like a reaction of the news. It's something, not that I don't like Dario Saric at all. I've just never been his biggest supporter in the Philadelphia media. I've always been kind of unsure of exactly what he brings to an NBA team. He seems to me more like a guy that's kind of a supplementary piece to a team rather than a foundational piece. And I think back at that point in the 2014 draft with the 10th pick, I think they could have gotten a guy that could have came in right away and contributed and maybe potentially been a foundational piece for the team. Zach LaVine from the Timberwolves, Rodney Hood from the Jazz were a couple of the guys that I mentioned. I just think they kind of, obviously now that it's been 2 years, I think they could have came in and developed and helped the team out rather than, this extended wait for Saric, who may still come over and be great, but it's just a matter of the same lingering questions with him at this point.
Update today basically saying now not so sure if Saric is going to come over. It sounds like he wants to come over, that people are telling him, no, you're not going there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is what's going on, and I think that's been a big concern all along. Even when the news came out a couple weeks ago that he told reporters that he was intending to come over and everything, I was a little bit cautious because I don't think you can really fully fully believe that he's coming over until the contract is signed, just based off of external factors, like you mentioned, the people around him, his family, and his agent and everything like that. And the money, as we discussed, it makes financially less sense for him to come to the NBA than to stay. So I think there's definitely people that have influence on him that want him to stay, whether or not his actual desire is to come play for the Sixers this summer.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain, the real Mike KB on Twitter. What do you think of the Henderson deal?
I liked it a lot. I think we'll see just a difference in a couple of these small signings like Bayless and Henderson will make quality NBA player that can, in the short term help the team out, make them much more bearable to watch and kind of mesh with some of these young guys. And it doesn't have, a negative effect on the cap, the cap space going forward. So I have to applaud Brian for both the Jared Bayless and the Sergio and the Henderson signing. I was big fans of all three of them, and I think those guys combined with the young talent that will be coming on will help make the Sixers much more bearable to watch this season.
Which of those three, Sergio, Rodriguez, Bayless, or Gerald Henderson, has the biggest role this year?
If the roster stays exactly as it is, I would say Jared Bayless just by default, because I think, whoever is going to be the default point guard starting, this season will obviously have a big role of getting, all the guys incorporated into the offense. I think Bayless is capable of it. But I expect him and Henderson to both have a pretty big role. Henderson's a guy an athletic wing and probably now one of the team's better perimeter defenders. And that's the type of guy that Brett Brown really likes, a two-way player like that. So I expect both Bayless and Henderson to have pretty sizable roles, at least this season.
What would you like to see them still do? Is there a move still out there for them?
I mean, it's tough. They addressed the areas that they needed to address, albeit on a smaller scale. I still do expect, a trade to come down the pipeline like we've discussed for one of the bigs, whether it be before the season starts or, sometime leading up to the trade deadline. I think that they eventually will have to move on from either Nerlens or Jalil, and I think obviously, getting a guard, whether it be a point guard or a shooting guard in return, would be, probably ideal for what they have with to go forward. Now, seeing Simmons, the way he operates with the basketball, you really just need to get some guys that can space the floor around him, and let him open up the lane and, find the guys on the perimeter, which he showed that he can do very well. So I think eventually that deal will get done.
Tom Moore has said a lot that he expects Embiid to play about 50 games, no back-to-backs. Does that make the Sixers kind of hold on to the bigs, though, for one more year if they're going to handle Embiid with kid gloves? Like, do they feel more inclined to hold on to those guys maybe?
Yeah, I don't think they're necessarily in a rush to move either of them. There was obviously tons of, speculation and rumors leading up to the draft and everything. But like you said, I think, especially now with the prospect of Simmons, you can't help but wonder what a guy like Simmons could do on the offensive end for both a Nerlens and a Jalil. I mean, a guy like Jalil who's already pretty advanced on the offensive end, and then you think of the open opportunities he would get in the paint from a guy like Simmons, and the same thing with Nerlens. So I think that that there's not necessarily a need for them to do a trade involving one of those guys right now. I think it would be maybe even potentially wise at this point with all the main moves already kind of out of the way. I think it actually might be wise for them to maybe just trot them out for the start of the season and see who meshes well with who and what it looks like going forward.
Yeah, you got, okay, if you like Wood, maybe he's a guy who can play a minor role where the nights that Embiid doesn't play, he gets some more minutes, or you got Rashawn Holmes. I mean, they keep talking about during these broadcasts when they're not mispronouncing everybody's name that the Sixers are so big, how long they are, right? I mean, this is a team that has a lot of front court depth.
Yeah, a whole lot. Definitely a whole lot. I heard the announcer say that a couple times, that the Sixers' length. I mean, every player, even you look at Timothy Luwalu, who will probably be playing a 2 or a 3. I mean, that's a guy that's over 6'7" and extremely long. So I think length and athleticism, it's something that Brett Brown and Hinkie were both really high on, and I think it's something that's kind of carried over into the Colangelo regime. So, they do have depth in the front court and length, but, I don't see there's really no downside, I guess, to bringing in Okafor and Nerlens into the season to see how they mesh with Simmons.
T.J. McConnell have a role in this team now with all the guards they just brought in?
Yeah, I see him being probably the third point guard. If assuming no other moves get made beforehand, they'll bring 3 point guards on the roster. If Jared Bayless is the starter, and then Sergio, I see TJ kind of being that third guy who would get probably not nearly as many minutes as he did last year, but that can be relied on. I think the Sixers have some faith. I know Brett Brown, likes TJ a lot and has faith in him, so I expect him to be the third guard on the roster.
Michael Kaskey-Blomain, would you have interest in Westbrook?
I mean, absolutely. In a vacuum, yes. Russell Westbrook is probably my favorite player to watch in the league, but the reality of him, re-upping to stay in Philadelphia after this season is, I'm a realist. They're pretty slim, and at that point, it doesn't really seem worthwhile to throw, a bunch of the amount of assets that it would take to get him to Philadelphia for one season, even though the memories and the entertainment value for the season would be off the charts. In the long run, it wouldn't work out well.
If they win 33 games, is that outlandish to say 33? Would they then be an attractive team to a higher level free agent?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know if the number is as important as the product on the court. I think if the way Simmons has demonstrated that he kind of has the ability to play, combined with a healthy Embiid and some of these veteran guys that Colangelo brought in, just showing a better level of basketball, I think that Philadelphia could turn into not necessarily a Los Angeles, Miami type destination, but I think they could definitely turn into an attractive free agent destination really quickly.
By the way, a couple new names on the Sixers Summer League roster for Vegas. You got Nik Stauskas. You're going to see Jeremy Grant out there as well. 2 of the bigger names on there. So Stauskas, I'm glad to see Stauskas get a run. What's your take on him this year? This is a big year for him.
Yeah, huge year. I'm with you. I'm glad to see him get a run out there. I expect him to be on the team just because they still have him really on his rookie deal, a pretty cheap deal, and he's a shooter in essence. That's supposed to be what he does well, and it's exactly what the team needs. But, like you said, he's going into his third season now, his second team. I think this is really a year where you look at players in the NBA where they're either going to make it or not going to make it. So I think he'll have the opportunity, I think, to an extent this year to show what he can do, at least as a reserve. The thoughts of him being a starter in the league might be gone, but I think he'll have the opportunity to show that he could at least be a rotation player with his shooting, and he just needs to take advantage of that opportunity.
You and I were on the same wavelength. I saw you tweet out earlier. I too had the Sixers taking Stauskas at 10 in that draft.
Yeah, I mean, skill set wise, it made all the sense in the world. It was the same areas that the team needed to address then that they needed to now. The shooting guard position, and floor spacing. So it's pretty ironic that they ended up with him a year later anyway without drafting him
and fleecing the Kings in the process.
Yeah, right.
All right, Michael Kaskey-Blomain at The Real Mike KB on Twitter, following the Philadelphia 76ers Summer League as they open up against the L.A. Lakers in Vegas. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good weekend, man.